What is the most effective psychological trick you use? One that I picked up from a friend of mine whenever he was trying to pick out dinner with his GF. Rather than ask what do you want and getting the typical I dunno anything answer and then having suggestions shot down. Start with what do you not want. Used it a few times in some of my relationships and it's the godsend question. This isn't something I've used but I think it's worth sharing. Darren Brown said that once there was a muscly drunk guy that wanted to beat him up and said the classic "what are you looking at?" Darren replied with "the wall outside my house is 4 feet tall." The idea is that it puts the aggravated person on the back foot and takes them out of that adrenaline-filled state. Anyways, he sat down and the guy started crying to him about his GF. He is Darren Brown though, so I wouldn't recommend this to everyone. Saying hello to everybody you know, and with a smile. Often people who know each other from when they were in primary school or just from the block when they were young give each other an awkward smile instead of an happy good day. Just imagine if someone walks into you twice a year and both times you smile and greet them enthusiastically, they will think of you as a nice person. So little effort for a person to find you friendly. I work front desk in a medical office. Patients hate updating their paperwork. I used to say, look through the pages and make any changes. They would groan and reluctantly take the paperwork, or just complain about it. Now I say, all you have to do is make changes. Saying it that way makes them think it's not much to do and they take the clipboard without complaint. It's the little things that make life at my office easier. When you're talking to someone, they will naturally fill silence. It's subconscious. If you want them to keep talking, keep your own mouth shut. This is useful if you're ever in a verbal altercation. Think of my future self. How will my future self feel in an hour or two if I skip my gym session? Will my future self be happy if I do this pile of dishes now, before bed? Or would he prefer to have to do it in the morning, before work? I have a 3-month deadline on this project. Will my future self appreciate my current self taking the first 3 or 4 weeks easy, or will he be really pissed off? Essentially delayed gratification. Pretty much all the bad stuff gives us instant gratification, while all the good stuff has delayed gratification. I always try to remember that if I have to wait to reap the rewards then it's probably the best option. I use this technique at university where I couldn't stand the thought of having to answer questions in front of a group of people. So if you find yourself in a group situation where someone, a leader, tutor, manager etc. is asking questions that must be answered and you want to avoid being picked so that you don't have to talk, then here is my tip. If the person locks eyes on you as they ask the question, then just as they are about to get to the end of their question you break eye contact and look towards another person in the room and hold it. Their attention is diverted to that other person just as the question ends and the person they are now looking at feels compelled to answer. If however the person starts asking the question while looking at someone else, then look at that other person and hold it so you can't get suckered. Use it sparingly because if you do it enough on the same person, they will be onto you. To avoid workplace drama and be well liked is to just compliment people behind their back. I would never say this to her face, but she's a wonderful person and a gifted artist. This was simultaneously one of the nicest and weirdest things Michael did on the show. IDK if this is an actual thing or not, or maybe just distractions, but when I do something annoying or bothersome to my husband and he goes quiet, I wait a few minutes and then I ask him a seemingly innocent question, usually on the subject of how certain parts of a car works, or something mechanical. This gets him talking about the car thing and he rambles for like 5 minutes and then bam. He's happy again and not quietly brooding. I'll never tell him I do that because I'm afraid it won't work anymore if he knows about it. It's foolproof though, it works every single time, no matter how bothered he is. A girl I like does this to me. I know exactly what she's doing and I fall for it every time. Set expectations low and blow people's minds with my mediocrity. Listening to someone without giving advice or pushing for more information typically nets me more information than being pushy for it. If you want to hear what someone has to say, just let them speak. If they stop, just wait. They will continue speaking and adding to what they were saying to fill the silence. I've done this a lot. When somebody shy is speaking, if you look at them and nod your head it encourages them to keep talking. I'm hard of hearing. I've spent a lot of my life nodding at my family to show I've heard and understood so they don't ask did you hear that? I do it at work, especially in meetings. I get a lot of attention from the speaker as I look like the only person actively listening. I'm a professional poker player. When I am in a pot with one other player, I often try to make them laugh when they are thinking about what to do. If you can get them to laugh, it sets them in a mood where they are unlikely to bluff. I talk a lot in general. It's very common to make jokes at the table even in hands. Hadn't considered this. Clever. Works well because they won't figure out what you're doing either. Music. Putting headphones in and playing the music that I know I'd want to hear if I was in the mood that I want to be in shifts me over to that mentally, and really helps when I need to calm down or when I need to feel happier. I feel like this is the audio version of dressing for what you want. I get into my gym clothes even when I feel sluggish, because it will put me in the mood to work out. Or I'll put on work clothes even when I'm working at home because I'll be more productive or more professional on the phone than if I were wearing pajamas. When someone is trying to throw excuses or generally if they are getting a bit arsy about something, often the best way to handle it is to stare back with mild interest and contribute nothing to their monologue. If you don't give them anything to work with, they'll talk themselves into a corner and lose confidence in what they're saying. I learned this trick from an old director who used to control pretty much any meeting room scenario by being the most silent and impassive person in the room. I fondly remember the time someone asked him a ridiculous question and he just stared at him for about 15 seconds. 15 seconds is a long time to be stared at in a room full of people. The guy wilted into his chair and nobody could work out if the director was angry or just quietly mulling it over. I worked for a company that had a VP that would use this technique all the time. People would always get nervous and say something stupid or change the subject when the silence got too long. It was very effective at getting people to divulge information they shouldn't or give up on topics. He would be considered my boss. One time in a room with about 60 technical engineers, I found myself in a very strange situation where I had to ask him a particularly tough question that most of my peers were afraid to ask. I was in a spot where I knew that if the issue didn't get addressed we all would be out of a job in a year or so. He was in the front of the room and I was near to his back. It was protocol to stand when talking so others could see you. I stood up and asked the question knowing full well that I wouldn't get an answer, and the starring contest began. One of the other guys claimed he watched the clock and it went on for over a minute. The other VP that was in the room got so uncomfortable that he adjourned the meeting for lunch at 10:45. In an argument, find something to agree on, then push your main point. When you realize this, it's like a superpower. When you are standing in a group and somebody tells a joke or something funny happens, people tend to look towards the person they like the most while laughing. Great. Now I'm trying to remember the last time I stood in a group who was laughing and who they turned toward. Great. Now I'm trying to remember the last time I stood in a group, and here I am trying to remember the last time I laughed. My wife calls this the simplest, most manipulative thing I do. Whenever I bump into an acquaintance, meaning not friend, just a person I know, I of course say hi and the conversation goes like this. Me. Hey. How are you? Name. You look good. Them. Laugh. Thank you. I'm good. How are you? Me. I'm great. I'm on the way to wherever I am going to at the time and I tell them why too. So what are you doing here? Them. Go into same detail to tell me where they're going and why me. Alright. Well, I won't keep you up any longer than I have. Have a good day. Name. It leaves people feeling good. Takes away the awkwardness of cutting a convo short and it makes them want to leave. If someone says they have the hiccups, ask them to prove it 9-10 times. The hiccups will disappear. Having to summon a hiccup in order to demonstrate will trick your diaphragm into just not hiccuping. I've been able to twist it around on myself with some success as well, but it takes practice. You realize you have hiccups, then try to hiccup. Actively try to make yourself do another one. It'll stop. My husband says I will give you $50 if you hiccup 2 more times. It works amazingly well. He's never had to pay me. If you need to de-escalate someone and get them to communicate asking questions about numbers, personal information. I work in emergency services. If someone is totally distraught and shut down, Asking their phone number, address, SSN, birth date can pull them out of the emotional place and bring them back to a headspace where they can talk about what happened more easily. I often ask these questions even after I have the information just to de-escalate. Anyone here reading through the posts for the sake of using them in the future, but an hour later you forget everything you've just read? Put all your forks in your pantry while reading a good advice. Like and subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.